12 months ago, we allowed circa 1.9. What did the prices come back at? How you've worked those prices into the safe space that you have.
The allowance at the time was high, probably for a 3 townhouse site. Just want to touch on go that higher end product to get the resales. With that price movement and time, sometimes it's never high enough.
You go to work on everything else, you create a competitive build tender, put the savings into some other items, relationships and other things, and you get to keep your real showstoppers.
Welcome to the Development Tank, brought to you by ReadyBuild, the best value in knockdown, rebuild and dual occupancy projects in the market. I'm inside one of our ReadyBuild display homes where quality meets affordability. If you're planning a project anywhere in Australia, talk to me first. Scan the QR code or hit the link to book a free call. We'll beat the competition on price, service and value, guaranteed. If you're going to build, you're crazy not to build with ReadyBuild. Let's get into the podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to Development Tank. Back in the office today. Claire's back in here with me. We're going to go deep into a project that we had on the Development Tank earlier on in the year. McKinnon Road in McKinnon, corner site, 3 townhouses. We've got the tenders back. The team's going deep on the tender process. So what do you do when your prices come back too expensive, which has been the theme of the last couple of years? So super important that we teach you guys and show you guys what you do when that happens, because there is things you can do. There is ways to mitigate the issues and there's ways to get the pricing down. So keen to jump into that with Claire today. Claire, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me back in the office.
Yes, well, you've been out on site, cruising around. Now we've got you back in here doing some real work.
It's always a bit harder in the office.
Real work.
Nothing to look at or touch.
Yeah, with your interiors. But I think a super important topic today, and one that a lot of people would be going through out there. You know, they've bought the site circa 12 months ago, such as we did here. They've allowed a certain build allowance 12 months on now, and they're getting a fright with the prices that they're getting back. This is an example of that, and the prices you guys got back was a surprise, and now you've put in the work to get them into a safe space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in a position where over the last few years, this is a common theme, like you said in the intro. So I guess even though we don't want them to come in higher, I guess when it does, it's easy for us not to get emotionally involved and sort of run through the processes of bringing that price down where it needs to be. But it is always a tough conversation and a hard conversation with each client when it does come in higher, and people listening at home doing their own tenders for the first time, it can be a shock.
Yeah, 100%. It's because you've got an idea and you think where build pricing sits, and something that we've had to go through over the last few years, we're always behind the 8 ball, aren't we? So the last tender we did, the last contract we let was a price, and we sort of were always chasing these prices that seem to keep running away from us, especially from our feasibility date, which is usually circa 12 months ago. So yeah, I think it's a really important topic that we go through. And yeah, like you say, last couple of years, having those conversations with clients, putting in the work ourselves, doesn't make our job easier when you're simply not just picking your inclusions and your builder, you're having to do that whilst bring the price down a couple of $100,000 in most situations. So if I can give the project just a recap, Claire, before you get into the lessons of when the prices come in high. 3 townhouse site in McKinnon, corner of McKinnon Road and Jean Street. Amazing location in the school zone there, a torpedo away from Brighton East, like a really, really good spot. Nice big corner. You guys have achieved circa 23 squares each dwelling, which is great. I think we might have allowed even a touch less, so achieving a little bit more than we wanted to. The one on the corner is a ripper, and then the next 2 off in Jean Street are great as well. They're 4-bed, 3-bath, 2 living. As always, you guys have been able to sort of sneak pantries in, sneak studies in, great master bedrooms, these sorts of things. So super excited by the product, and hang around to the end because we've got renders that the team have just finished, which will then go towards our off the plan marketing and sales strategy for 2025. Most likely they'll jump in next year, but super excited by those renders, and gives you a real taste of the quality that we're going to deliver here, which is going to keep our resales in good space. But that's the development, that's the recap. Bought around 12 months ago. We allowed around sub 2 for the build. I'd say about 1.9-ish for the build. And like I said earlier, that's based on other builds that we've done, similar size, similar scope, in a similar time frame. So real data, not just having a stab at the dark. Now, Claire, 12 months ago, we allowed circa 1.9. What did the prices come back at? And now you're going to walk us through how you've worked those prices into the safe space that you have.
Just on that, I think the allowance at the time was high probably for a 3 townhouse site, because we were trying to, I just want to touch on, go that higher end product to get the resales. And we definitely achieved it, which you'll see in the renders that we've got, the marketing renders. But at the same time, with that price movement and time, sometimes it's never high enough.
Yeah, spot on.
I remember getting the budget going, oh, we're so fine here. Like this is hopefully not going to be a 4-month tender review process and value management process. But unfortunately, like you said, we're putting together feasibilities at that time, and we're not ready for tender 12 months later.
Yeah, correct, 100%. And I think, and I know build prices have continued to creep up in that 12 months. Like I said, we're always behind the 8 ball. So, to acknowledge they've gone up, but they hadn't gone up probably as much as where the prices initially come back at. But then it's roll the sleeves up, negotiate with the builders, value manage, all these sorts of things. And, the way you guys run a competitive tender allows you to find the best price, get your best builder, and hopefully achieve the best outcome.
Yeah, so on that, we went out to 4 builders, 2 that we have used quite often in the past and we've got a really good relationship with. Another 2, both new to Little Fish, that they're pricing other jobs and we're getting involved. But it gave us a really good spread. It holds the existing builders that we have relationships with accountable and make sure that their pricing is sharp, but then also gives opportunity for new relationships. So first tender came back at 2.5, and then obviously at that point you go, whoa, we're quite high.
Hold your horses.
But you don't, I guess at that point you need to wait for the next 3, because either it's going to tell you that new builder who came in at 2.5 is way off market, or it's going to tell you that is your market value. So the next 3, we had a spread between 2.3 and 2.6, which when it's that high, which tells me instantly that is the market value and that's where it's sitting. Because it sounds like a big difference, but at that contract price, it's not a huge difference. We're talking percentages.
Yeah, correct. We're talking circa 10%, something
across
like that.
The 4.
Yeah, correct.
Exactly.
100%. So, and I think just going back to that, 4 good builders, 2 builders you're known to you, 2 builders not. I think both can be good options. New builders usually put a really aggressive foot forward to try and build the relationship, get the first job going. But then the builders that are tried and true, that have worked with you for a long time, and you got a relationship there, I think it's important still to have those guys in the mix as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess going back to receiving those 4, once they all came in, there's the conversation piece with the client that we're going to work through this and bring it back, not necessarily to the 1.9 that we were going to target a year ago, but bring it back to a place that still gets us the quality and the product that we need to be able to hit our resales, but also bringing it back to a place that makes sense for the feasibility.
Yeah, 100%. It's not looking at this and going, hey, we've got to gut it back to 1.9 and being unreasonable from that point of view, because the 1.9, which everyone will figure out soon enough, 1.9 will be a pretty barren place of you've stripped your product out. The resales that you have allowed for early on will not be anywhere near possible. So it's about making sure you still tick the boxes you need to hit your resales, but challenge everything, negotiate, work with your builders. And is it probably fair to say at the moment, market's a bit flat, probably less projects going ahead. So you've got your builders that are motivated to win the work, which is a nice recipe for a good negotiation and a good tender process.
Well, that's a really good point, because at the moment I really find builders are keen for the work, and it's not saying that they will buy work as such, but there is always that 12 months ago there just wasn't room for negotiation. It was, this is the price and this is what I'm going, and probably they're still a little bit gun shy from COVID and material price increases that they've probably worn. So I guess nowadays, or at the moment, we're finding that you do have a little bit more negotiation power, which is nice. It's just a nice place to be in. So ultimately, it was, like you said, bringing it back to a place that makes sense, but also being very aware of the market shift. And I guess something we haven't noted in today's episode, that this client is complete investor. So they're about They're about best outcome for the project rather than budget driven. So if this was an owner rock and they had a hard limit, I guess, on their budget, you probably are looking at either peeling it back to a place that, whether or not they do landscaping at another stage, or peeling the scope back so they can afford it. This definitely wasn't, or this isn't. It's more about making sense from a feasibility point.
Yeah, correct. And I think, well, that's the most bullish and powerful place to be. But everyone wants to maximize that ROI level. So getting it to a place that still works for the job, but still going to put yourself in the best position to realize those good sale values, because this will be finished maybe end of 25, Claire, potentially. Yep. You said to me before we'll have a slab before Christmas. So
that's what we're aiming for.
Fish, slab before Chrissy. So potentially finished end of 2025, hopefully got ourselves in the way of a couple of rate cuts by then, and hopefully some interest off the plan or on completion, either, but ideally coming into a reasonable market to transact a couple of these.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Claire, where do we start? You know, you've gone out to your builders, like you said, you've got a good cross section there. Your prices have come in high. People are a little bit stressed. What do you do first?
So first point, we've got our 4 builders. We've established that the spread is great. At that point, it's not about focusing in on 1 or 2 yet. It's about making sure your tender clarifications go out to all 4, because that will allow, we might have, say, 20 to 25 tender clarifications depending on the project. But ultimately, just going through bit by bit, what you'll find is when you spread your 4 submissions against each other, is that one builder has clarified something in particular. Say it might be something to do with your local point of discharge or your drainage, or a bit of something that we haven't noted since now. And that, looking at those against each other, will create your post-tender clarification. So builder 1 has noted something about a provisional sum for drainage, and your clarification can then be based off that and go out to all 4 builders to ensure that everyone has allowed for that same, let's say, for that same extra work associated with the drainage, for example.
I think that's a great point. So you get 4 interested, keen builders to win the work, and through their whole body of work that they've put into this quote, you get to then put together your clarification. So like you said, an example, like you said, legal point of discharge, one's allowed it, the rest haven't. So then that gives the others a clue to be like, hey, what have you guys allowed? And this is, I guess, just a mission to get the best and the closest to an apples and apples comparison, and even help the other builders
filling gaps
from the other builders that they're essentially competing with to get to their best price. And I suppose, and going back to all 4 of them, even at this stage, Claire, that's, you know, you've got one up 2.6, you're not putting a line through them. They've put a lot of work into the project. So keeping them through that tender process as a sign of respect, and keeping the opportunity open for them to sharpen their pricing.
Well, exactly. The builder, let's say builder 4 at 2.6 that might be the price once you start to do the post-tender. The builder 1 at 2.3 might end up getting closer to that once you confirm a few things, because I guess it's important to remember that whilst you know the project well, you're never going to know it like the plumber who quotes the drainage in and out. You're just not. But you've just got to be in a position to ask all the right questions. And I think laying those 4 prices out next to each other and reviewing the clarifications and then putting your own post-tender clarifications together, I think that allows you to make sure every builder understands the project.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And like you said, the price might be 2.6 and the 2.3 guy might end up at 2.6, but it could work the other way, that few have made assumptions that maybe they shouldn't have, and suddenly you're back down, at that lower figure. So I think it's a great process to do, and to not assume that your highest builder is actually maybe out of the mix and you've just honed into your cheapest builder, because if you hone into them, cut off the other guys, you might slowly but surely get up into that pricing range where the other builders were, and you've cut those other guys off, and then you lose that competition at the pointy end of where you can say, hey, I've got potentially 2 great builders, give me, help me pick, guys, help me pick. And that's the competition that hopefully drives price to a comfortable place.
And it's about being fair. Like you said before, every builder's put in the same amount of 4 weeks. And if one builder has sort of priced above and beyond what you need and done extra scope based on what they usually do for clients, but potentially this job doesn't need it, it's fair to give them, I guess, that final shot on coming to the middle place of pricing.
Yeah, correct. Love it. So you do this post-tender clarifications. What do you expect to happen once the clarifications come back?
Just, I guess we send those out. There's a long list. There's one column of our questions and then a spot for all the builders, their own, of course, to respond.
One thing, Claire, sorry to cut you off. Just when you're doing this, you're actually plugging in, you've sent your tender process out. They've quoted on your spreadsheet, Little Fish spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You've then put it into your post-tender list where you're comparing all the line items.
Yep.
So, and just quickly, just a little plug, Little Fish Network, all these resources are in the Little Fish Network, fish free, all free in there. So all this process that we're running through, the resources are there. So sorry, Claire, so you've got your spreadsheet and you're comparing them all.
Yeah, so that's probably something I didn't dive into deep enough. Yes, you spread out the tender submissions, but also another layer on that is we plug in a trade breakdown that all builders have submitted next to each other. And that, again, going back to comparing apples with apples, that allows, let's say, joinery. We've got 3 builders who have priced it at $120,000 and 1 builder who has priced it at $200,000. So that builder potentially has, and I'm just going off the fact that 3 have all priced it the same and 1 hasn't, they've either allowed for something completely different or they've just made a mistake in their spreadsheet, which, believe it or not, has happened. It happened with a trade, I think painting, where a builder just accidentally doubled it. It doesn't happen often. Like, I don't want people at home thinking that we're going to find a magic $100,000 lying around. It doesn't happen often, but it can. And that's just going back to that, making sure that we give every builder that's taken the time a fair run at it. So like you said, we've gone through the costs, we've gone through tender clarifications, we've sent those out to come back. And then ultimately that will determine that where the builders are sitting. So potentially your 2.6 has come down to 2.5, but your 2.3 has gone back up to 2.4.
Okay, so that variance window has closed.
Correct. Or your 2.6 stayed at 2.6 and your 2.3 might have stayed at 2.3. But ultimately I guess it's given us comfort that the prices we've got back have allowed for what we needed them to allow. And then at that point, instead of spending because we're going to spend time looking at value management, see what we can peel back without peeling back the resales. At that point, we like to just focus in on 2 preferred.
Okay, so we've done the post-tender. Prices have come back in. Ideally, the window closes a bit, I suppose. Would that make sense? Like, to have still a 300 or 400K variance would still have a question mark in your head, I'd say. So for that window to close, because we don't know their margins and who their plumbers are and who their cabinet makers are, and there's going to be variances there. But that ideally that process should close them in a bit. Now it's pick a couple of builders that based on price, time, cost, quality, reputation, product they've delivered, past experience. Then you pick your 2.
Pick 2, and that's more so dealing with 4 becomes difficult, but also it's just about not wasting their time because they've already spent a lot of time tendering and pricing, and if they are, $300,000 over where the best builder or best price builder is, and that's what you want to target, it's just a waste of their time and would never expect them to drop that much because you don't want a builder who does buy work and then end up needing money halfway through a job.
Yeah, okay. So it's about giving them enough time and respect to get them to a place where they've put their best foot forward and they've had the best opportunity to win it. As soon as I guess you get to the point where they're not going to be your builder, it's important to give them their feedback and I guess consolidate potentially in this instance to your couple of builders that are going to win the work and not waste time.
Exactly.
Yep.
So be very transparent with that you are a preferred with another builder, but we're going to start working through some ways to peel back money. It's important to note that working with, say, the 2 builders, their trades will be able to provide different discounts. So you might get a discount from one builder, but the other builder might not be able to match that. Hence, it's important to have the 2 there because you might have a handful of better savings from one than you do the other. And then ultimately, that builder becomes better priced. So
for everyone at home, Fish is sitting at home with his popcorn. The numbers guy, we were circa 1.9 in the FISO. Prices have come back 2.4, 2.5, 2.6.
Yeah.
Where were the builders when you peeled them back to 2?
So we had, let's say, builder 1 at about 2.4 and builder 2 at about 2.5.
I'll give you the hot tip, guys. We're not going to get to 1.9, but we need it to make more sense. So they're still at a high number. So you guys have still got work to do.
Yeah, still got work to do. And I guess for a bit of context, the 2.5 builder, they had a better program. So this comes back with your post-tender. So they could do it in 2 months less was what they would commit to. I guess they didn't have any provisional sums.
Okay.
The other builder had movement in concrete, just a little bit of risk. So you've just got to consider risk, time, holding costs, things like that for builder A, who was the cheaper one.
Yeah.
So really, when you look at things like that, it's 100 grand, but potentially it might only been a 50K variance.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like, you've still got that 100K is 100K, but you got to dive in and peek behind the curtain and look at what else they're offering up, because they could end up being the same price.
Yeah.
But one's a bit lighter, a couple of provisional sums give them the opportunity to get to that builder's price anyway.
Yeah.
So talk to me. So what's next? So I guess at this point you've got two builders that are really keen to win the work and they know they're at the pointy end of things. At this point, do they start to lean into things? And if they're keen to win the work, do they start maybe saying, hey, all right, we can negotiate on this, we can negotiate on that? Like, how are we going to get this price down?
So completely motivated at this point, especially when they're the last two, I guess, and they both capable and very much want the work.
Good position to be in for the client.
Really good. Still, like you said, a lot of work to do, but good position to be in. So I guess people at home may be doing this for the first time. I think now is the point where you have your meetings with your builder and work through value management options with them. Obviously, we've done it a fair few times here at the Little Fish office. So we ourselves populate suggested value management items. I guess the biggest thing for this project in particular is we really want to hit a high-end feel, a luxury feel. They're not massive homes. They're 23 squares each, but the square design does get you a lot more versus the long, narrow design. But because they're a bit smaller, we want to fill every space with touch points and those special moments and making sure they're efficient, which can often lead to money when it comes to joinery. Our external facades, we've got standing seam, we've got painted white brick, we've got a really nice 1/7 front fence. We have those niceties, and I guess we want those niceties to hit our resale. So it's always a balancing act, because whilst we do go out and get sort of every value management item, more so for a shopping list, it doesn't mean we're going to take up every item. And that can be the hard thing, because I guess where we got to in the end could have been lower. It could have potentially been 100 grand lower. But divided by the 3 houses, 33 grand a house, is it going to get you your resale? Is it going to stop someone buying it? It's that balancing act, which is hard.
Yeah, 100%. So a full balancing act. And this is the art of it, isn't it? It's being able to get to the end and stand by your product, but get it to a point where it makes sense from a price perspective.
Yeah.
So you've got your list back of potential savings. Can you reel off a few of those of what types of things that you guys were entertaining that wasn't going to affect the product, but you thought could save you some money?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll start with items that we did actually take up that weren't in our mind they're not going to affect our resale. So all ground floor is it was designed to be a flat red brick painted white, which is quite a beautiful finish. There was a value management item given by the builders to go to a white brick, not painted, just a standard white brick with, say, a white mortar, so as much white sand as possible. Ultimately, from, say, 1.5 meters back, not many people would be able to tell the difference. And that was about 30 grand across the 3. So that one we definitely took.
Yeah.
Still going to achieve that desired white brick and the black up above, black standing seam. Another one that we took up, which this one's quite an interesting one, because even we were surprised in the saving we could get, but the design had a lot of double hung windows, which is a nicety, but definitely not a necessity when you're selling a house. I guess they give the same overall look to an awning window, which awning windows is often what we do. But for whatever reason, we went with double hung throughout the design phase of this. And to swap the double hung to awning was circa 28 grand across the 3. So that is something simply that you will not, it just wouldn't matter to an end user. I don't know about you, but it wouldn't bother me buying a house.
No, correct. And the thing is, depending on these locations as well, like some of them can be hidden behind window furnishings and sheer curtains and things like that. In a dwelling that's going to sell, they're going to sell probably sub 2.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
Yeah. Another really good one, throughout this process, we had finalised one of our partnerships with E&S Trading in conjunction with SMEG. So that one, we updated the appliance package. So still getting SMEG, still getting the level of finish we wanted, but due to that partnership, that was an easy 22,000 across the 3.
Yeah, wow.
So that one was an easy win. Doesn't change anything. It was purely based on that being finalised, which was great, our partnership.
How amazing is that? And this is for everyone playing along in the network. The partnerships live in the Shark subscription, and for our builders to price it and get their trade discounts, and then for Little Fish to come in with $22,000 of savings across 3 units, for the price of a Shark subscription. Thank me later. That's a great win, especially when you're not foregoing anything. To be able to value manage and make savings without foregoing anything is the dream.
A couple of the other ones that I want to touch on were changing over the supplier, and it was timber flooring and carpet. And that had quite a significant in price reduction from builder to builder. Each builder was quite different. Again, it comes down to their relationship with their suppliers. But if you can still get the same quality of the 100% wool, loop pile, the engineered floorboards, same colour, they can be really good savings. I think circa carpet and timber, the savings up for grab was around the 27 to 29.
Yeah, well done.
Which is an easy one. I think there's merit in using certain suppliers where you can, but when you're looking at that sort of discount, it's hard to say no. And I guess something to say on that, like for example, going back to if you've got a relationship with the supplier, you can go back to them direct and say, hey, my builder is giving me this discount. Would you be able to match something similar? And they often, I won't say they often do, but they can.
And even just giving them that chance, if you've got that relationship with them, it's nice to give them that opportunity rather than let them miss out on it, them call you halfway through the build and say, hey, you haven't put your order in yet, and you go, oh, the builder must have gone with someone else, and that's not great for a long-term relationship. So to give them the opportunity, I think is healthy. So thanks, Claire. You've reeled off a handful that helped you get there and helped you get some savings. Obviously, it sounds like there's some negotiation, some competition through there as well. Whereabouts did you get to?
We are going to finalise a contract for circa 215.
Yeah, well done. So 2,150, we're about 250 above where we allowed in the FISO. But in saying that, that's probably about 10, 11%, 12%. Fisher, can you check on that? About 10%, which in that 12 months, it's hard to argue that build prices and things like that haven't done that. But to take a bit of a medium price that has come in mid 2 mils, 2.4, 2.5, and not forego too much, not forego the product, just do the hard work and obviously use your expertise and your experience and your relationships to get it to that 2,150. I think's super exciting.
Really good. And exciting that there is a bit of negotiation back in the realm of building again, which was nice to feel or nice to see.
Nice and 100% encouraging. And that's the lesson of doing a proper competitive tender. But bringing your 2 final ones together and each builder knowing that there's another builder there that's about to win the work and genuinely going to win the work. That can sometimes be the letdown. Sometimes when you just go it alone with one builder and they don't know they're competing against one, or they're actually not competing against one, you lose that competitive edge. But as we know, horses for courses, depends on your needs and wants at the time. So Claire, well done. Client, has killed him, done well, really, really lucky, and sounds like they'll have an awesome builder as well. Can you take us to the renders that are finalised that you guys have been working tirelessly to get ready for our off-the-plan sales campaign? But I think when people see these, they'll really appreciate the level of quality and I guess the value management process you guys went through, that really you haven't foregone too much and they still look really epic.
I think that's the key too, Peter, is we got a list back and there was probably another $100,000 saving across the 3, but those items were too much of a risk to, I guess, get the resales that we wanted.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Like, you've got 100K extra to really start attacking this thing. 30, 35K a dwelling. These things were really starting to we envisage we're going to eat into that resale. So, save 100, maybe cost yourself 100 a townhouse. So now that's becoming a real issue. So yeah, very good. Now, how good do they look?
So there we go. There's the facade.
Yeah, how good do they look? Nice high fence, private. That front yard is just an asset. And the white on black. I remember when we bought the side, and that's what we were envisaging, weren't we?
And I think this is the perfect shot to explain there were more savings with this fence, so removal of this fence. But this in particular, this house, that's an enormous play for doubling up as another backyard.
Nah, correct. I totally agree. And to get the big ticket, that's the slightly bigger dwelling. But yeah, definitely land component. It's bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a win. That's a win for sure. Beautiful.
And then we've got our standing seam up above. Often, depending on suburban area and resales, we'll do a James Hardie painted, which is that is definitely a nice product. But for what we're targeting and the finish that we want, we made the call to keep the standing seam in.
Love it. And that's a great point. You go to work on everything else. You create a competitive build tender where builders are giving you a bit. You put the savings into some other items, relationships and other things, and you get to keep your real showstoppers. Yeah, very important.
So this is, from memory, Unit 3, living, dining, kitchen.
Lovely.
Again, like I was saying before, because they are the smaller size dwellings, I guess there is a level to the joinery that has been included, and in some areas you just can't peel back.
Yep, integrated fridge freezer. I think very considered, these dwellings, so there won't be too much the buyers need to add to them. Everything's been pretty much sorted.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is Unit 1.
Fantastic.
Which is nice. This is probably one of my favourite units out of the 3.
Yeah, it's a great shot. It's a great marketing shot. That if that doesn't sell something, it's not there to be sold.
And lastly, the master bed, walk-in robe into the ensuite.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Beautiful joinery. Carpet, tones are amazing. Couple of lights there. Nice heavy bench top, stone splashback into a feature tile. These are looking really good. And to think that during that build tender process, you got everyone found sort of 300 grand.
Yeah.
I think it's a real win. Well done.
Yeah, I think downstairs we're all really happy with the outcome. Often, and I feel like this is 12 months ago, you'll go through this process and there's not much room. There's not much room for negotiation. It's hard to peel it back, but we've been able to peel this one back and still keep a really, really solid high-end project.
No, outstanding. Well done. These will hit the market next year. Slab by Christmas. Claire, well done. Keen to meet you out on site. Maybe this time next year and see how the project's going. But by the look of those renders, it's going to come up really well.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Well done. Please, guys, like, share, subscribe. Anyone that's going to get value out of that. Anyone who's still here, thanks for watching. These ones, we're going to head back out there next year and see the finished product. Hopefully 1 or 2 sold off the plan. Hopefully there's still one for sale at the end. We love that, to be able to furnish it and put the sheer curtains in and all that sort of stuff and get those finished shots. Happy developing.